The 2024 presidential election got quite the shakeup on Sunday, but whoever winds up running for Democrats, most likely Vice President Harris, will still be arguing against Donald Trump and his brand of populism. But is there an ideological evolution taking place just under the surface of the Republican Party? Joining us now is Oren Cass, American Compass founder and chief economist. Oren, it is great to see you. So obviously, listen, a historic event, Oren, over the weekend. President Biden withdraws, does endorse Kamala Harris. Things are about to get even more interesting, Oren. But if Trump and Vance do take the White House, Oren, I think a lot of viewers are still trying to understand what exactly that could mean, Oren, in terms of economic policies. Obviously, traditionally, you would think, okay, Republican White House, I get it. Tax cuts, deregulation, free trade. Would you expect the same this time around, Oren?
I think probably not. We already saw the last time President Trump was in office a very eclectic mix of policies. You had, on the one hand, more big tax cuts, but on the other hand, you had, frankly, a trade war with China, a lot of tariffs, a real effort to crack down on immigration enforcement. And so what I think you're seeing is just a different orientation when it comes to what is good for the economy, what is good for the nation. The old kind of free market obsessed Republican Party that was so closely aligned with the Chamber of Commerce and thought, whatever is good for profits, whatever is good for the stock market, that must be what's good for America. That's out the window. And especially with the selection of Senator Vance as his running mate, I think, what Trump is signaling is this time around, even more so, this is not going to be an administration that's frankly trying to be especially friendly to Wall Street.
And do we know, Oren, listen, if Trump and Vance took the White House, Trump is president, he sets the economic policies and agenda. Do we have a line of sight, Oren, of how just closely aligned Trump is with Vance? When Vance really goes after business and corporations, multinationals, Wall Street, do we know how aligned the two are there on that?
Well, look, he picked him, right? I mean, if you think about who the finalists were, at least reportedly, you had, Vance and Rubio, who are both leading members of this new economic thinking on the right. And then you had Doug Burgum and Glenn Youngkin, who would be sort of very conventional pro-business Republicans, much more in the cut of Mike Pence. And Trump chose Vance, right? Vance doesn't get up and give that speech on Wednesday night without Trump in the campaign knowing exactly what he's going to say. And so I think, Trump himself is obviously always a very pragmatic politician, not at all ideological. I wouldn't predict he's just sort of all in with this way of thinking, and you're going to see a careful and consistent set of policies always coming out of the White House. But if you think about the distance from a Pence choice to a Vance choice, that really tells you the story of the transformation that has gone on in the Republican Party in the last 8 years. It certainly indicates a change in Trump's thinking. And it shows a huge change in Congress. I mean, when Trump got to the White House last time, he looked down Pennsylvania Avenue, and at the other end, there was Paul Ryan sitting there with a big tax cut waiting. When you look down into the Capitol now, you see, obviously, Senator Vance was there, Senator Rubio, Senator Hawley, Senator Cotton. The energy and the leadership in the Republican Party among policymakers is all pushing in this direction. So I don't think it's going to be a clean sweep. It's not going to be, the J.D. Vance agenda, but it certainly is going to be a lot further in that direction than what folks are accustomed to from the Republican Party.
And Oren, let me ask you this. What evidence do we have that you would point to that the economic policies advocated by populist conservatives like Senator Vance, so, tariffs, industrial policy, Lena Khan is great. What evidence do we have, Oren, that actually really does help the people that populist conservatives say they want to help, the American working class?
Well, that was the economic policy for the first 200 years of the American Republic, and certainly the Republican Party's agenda, whether you're talking about Abraham Lincoln or Teddy Roosevelt, all the way through Dwight Eisenhower. The Republicans were always the party of tariffs. The Republicans were the party of trust busting. The Republicans were the party of free markets, of the idea that you want to have healthy markets and competition with a real focus on the kind of investment that's going to be good for American workers. And we saw we saw the result of that. America became the industrial colossus with the middle class that was the envy of the world. It's really only in the past 20 or 30 years, especially since the end of the Cold War, that you had the Republican Party taken over by these market fundamentalists who said more free trade is good, even with China, more immigration is good, no matter how low wages go. We don't need antitrust. We don't have to worry about monopolies. We're going to bust unions. That is a flash in the pan over the long run, and the results have been terrible. Growth got slower, industry got hollowed out, wages stagnated. And so I think we have to get back in a sense to the actual model of capitalism that works, that says if you want to make it a buck in America, you make it with American workers.
Do you see, Oren, areas of overlap between the economic policies of populist conservatives like a J.D. Vance and progressives like Kamala Harris?
There are certainly some. I think you see the most overlap on the diagnosis. You see Republicans and conservatives now acknowledging there are real problems. A rising tide doesn't just lift all ships. Just having a free market doesn't mean that things are going to work out well for everyone. And workers and working families have been falling behind. When it comes to what to do about it, it's very interesting. In an area like tariffs, you actually see now the Democratic Party starting to follow the Republican Party a little bit. Joe Biden obviously maintained most of Trump's tariffs. I don't think anyone knows what Kamala Harris would do. Certainly, someone like Lena Khan, focused on antitrust enforcement, has a lot of overlap with much greater focus on competition in the Republican Party. But again, it's been reported that that's not necessarily the direction Kamala Harris would go. In general, the Biden-Harris administration, if you think about their main initiatives, it's been essentially uncontrolled immigration. It's been hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars investment in green climate policy. It's been forgiving student loans. It is not at all the conservative agenda, and it's not one that really helps workers. There have been some things that I think have been good, the CHIPS Act, the Infrastructure Act, but of course those were bipartisan.